Tax season is here, which means you've received or are expecting that tax refund any day now, and you're thinking about what to spend it on. How about a new home? With SaveWithConrad.com, we're helping renters become homeowners every single day, and it's more affordable than you think. You don't need perfect credit. You don't need a huge down payment. In fact, you may not need a down payment at all. At SaveWithConrad.com, we take the stress out of the home buying process. We'll determine your buying power. We'll even help you find a realtor. And unlike the banks, we don't say no. We say not yet, but here's how. So if you're not ready right now, we'll get you on a plan to be ready. Stop throwing your money away, paying someone else's mortgage with your rent, and start the path towards owning your own home today at SaveWithConrad.com. NMLS number 2129, Equal Housing Lender. SaveWithConrad.com. Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to Something to Wrestle with John Layfield. John, what's going on, man?
I'm still here, Conrad. I have no idea why. I'm not any good at this shit, but I'm here taking Bruce's place, and I'm glad to be here.
You're fantastic at it. Everywhere I go, people are talking to me about how much they enjoy you and I having a conversation here on Bruce's show. But the other question I get is, when's Bruce coming back? And when that happens, what's going to happen with you and JBL? I think we can share with everybody here, John, the guns blue, honest truth. We don't fucking know, but we know we're doing something. We know that we're going to keep doing something. We're having a blast, and we hope you are too. And if you just can't get enough JBL, have you heard Stories with Brisco and Bradshaw? It's available everywhere you enjoy podcasts. Go out of your way to see it. It's on Apple. It's on Spotify. It's on YouTube. Stories with Brisco and Bradshaw. But today, our topic is all things JBL. It's Ask JBL Anything. But before we get into that, I do want to ask you, and I guess we should share, we are recording this in advance of Friday Night SmackDown. We're also recording this in advance of the big Elimination Chamber pay-per-view at the Skydome. The Skydome is such a big building. It's important in my fandom. One of my favorite WrestleManias as a little kid was Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior at the Skydome. Of course, there was one of the biggest Monday Night Raws in history at the Skydome before as well. Do you have any interesting Skydome moments yourself, John, that you can share with us?
The story that Bruce told me, and I think Pat told me, maybe Jerry told me also about Pat watching that match that you're talking about with the Ultimate Warrior and Hulk Hogan. They looked around and Pat's crying. And the reason Pat was crying was because he realized it was the end of something great.
Yes.
There's always the passing of the torch. And this was, you're going to try to go with somebody different with the Ultimate Warrior. And, it's kind of like, San Martino to Backlund. Doesn't mean that San Martino's leaving anywhere. He's still going to be around. Hogan was still going to be around. But it was just such a monumental moment in the business history that Pat got really emotional. And it tells you how much Pat loved the business and loved that first part of the WrestleMania. It was so cool.
I absolutely love that show, and I love the story of Pat being moved because I know that he had put together that match down in Tampa with Warrior and Hogan, and at that time, people thought it was the Warrior's very best match, and I guess the other part of that story is they found him tucked away in a broom closet after the show, just overwhelmed with emotion. I know what wrestling is, and I know what it isn't. But, man, in 1990, to be the guy to beat Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania for the world title, that's rarefied space right there, is it not?
Yeah, and I don't know who could have took that spot. Who could have took San Martino's spot. I thought the same thing about Roman Reigns, and Cody Rhodes did it. I mean, that's remarkable what Cody has done. But when you have a champion like that, like a Hogan, that he was everything. You built WrestleMania around him. And to try to change and go with somebody else, I just don't know if anybody could have filled that role. The Warrior was extremely popular. He wasn't a good worker, and that was exposed, unfortunately, in the next year. His promos were odd, but they worked. The Warrior worked. I mean, he was really over, but it was such a risk when you do something like that. And the person that gets that's why a lot of times you have a mailman as a transition. You put it on somebody that will carry it. You go through history, and you can see these mailmen that carried it for 2 or 3 months, and then you had somebody take it off of them and carry the title. It's hard to take it directly off the legend himself.
Well, we're going to be talking about the legend of John Cena, I'm sure, when we talk about the story of 2025. John Cena found himself as a member of this Elimination Chamber match we've teased a little bit of talk about the Elimination Chamber, about just how damn unforgiving that structure is and how many injuries have come out of that thing. But now we've got a who's who roster coming down to the Skydome. The Rock is going to be there, and the internet wants to know, where the hell is this going? Did you see the promo on Friday night on USA on SmackDown where The Rock came back? What did you think of it? And what do you expect to see? What do you hope to see this weekend at the Skydome?
Yeah, I did see it, and I thought it was excellent. First of all, I said something. I think we talked about it a little bit last week, and I said it was strange, but meant to be strange. Of course, clickbait took it out and goes, JBL says it's strange. Look, it was supposed to be, I believe. That's episodic television. I thought it was very good episodic television because it didn't give us any answers. It gave us a ton of questions. It's Roman Reigns calling the wise man and not getting an answer on the phone. All of a sudden, the show ends. That's, to me, kind of what happened with The Rock and Cody Rhodes. And it left so many more questions than answers. And I think that's really great episodic television.
We're also going to see a match that everybody's going to be talking about, I'm sure. Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens in Toronto in an unsanctioned match. You mentioned Pat Patterson. Boy, if he was here to see this event, is there any match he would look forward to more than that one?
They're going to go banana.
Yes.
It's just, yeah, Pat loves Sammy for a very good reason. Sammy's incredibly talented. I love Sammy, incredibly talented. And Kevin Owens. These guys, what a run they've had. I mean, this is unbelievable that they're still working against each other and still drawing. And this tells you how great both of these guys are, because they've had a million freaking matches together. I mean, go through history and see all of the people they've had incredible rivalries. Orton and Cena and Briscoes and the Funks, and how many times they can wrestle. Sometimes great ones can wrestle for a couple decades. That's hard to believe. That's what they've done. This is really a phenomenal run. And I'm sure they'll, as they always do, are going to have a great match.
It's going to be such a star-studded affair. And once upon a time, John, it was talked about, these February pay-per-views. And I know technically, I guess this one's happening in March, but the February pay-per-view, the pay-per-view between Royal Rumble and WrestleMania, was always considered like almost a lame duck pay-per-view. Yeah. I remember in the era of like Fastlane, it's like, okay, you might see some matches, but realistically, everybody's just waiting for WrestleMania. But this being a dome show with the Elimination Chamber, with John Cena, CM Punk, Drew McIntyre, Logan Paul, Damian Priest, and Seth freaking Rollins, all inside the Elimination Chamber, plus one for the ladies, plus Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. Oh, and The Rock and Cody Rhodes are going to be there. They've pulled out all the stops for this. This feels like the exact opposite of the way we used to approach February pay-per-views. This is not a lame duck, John. This has consequence.
It does. It has massive consequence, and I love the way it's done. I've seen a lot of the criticism out there, and people want to criticize booking. Don't blame you. I criticize coaching in the NFL, and the coaches in the NFL know a game I don't even understand. But I love criticizing them because it's fun. And remember my teams? I love my teams. And I love being passionate about them, just like fans love being passionate about the guys that they love and the business that they love. This was incredibly well done. And the reason is, WrestleMania used to be set around the Royal Rumble. Then you had the 3-month build-up to it, and it's basically just kind of going to WrestleMania. Well, now it's not set. And since it's not set, this stadium show, this big, huge show, this show in Toronto, is going to be one of huge significance. And then you will start seeing the road to WrestleMania become very clear. It's not how it was done in the past. I think what they're doing right now is much, much better.
How big of an advantage do you think it is that WrestleMania is going to be later this year? Of course, historically, we've always seen WrestleMania around late March or very early April. But we've got a few extra weeks there, allegedly because Vegas wanted a tourist attraction over Easter weekend. Maybe that historically has not been gangbuster business for Vegas. So, hey, why not bring in WrestleMania? That makes total sense to me. But creatively, it does give you more time to tell those stories, right, John? Is that an advantage?
Huge.
Okay.
I'm sorry, huge advantage. And again, the criticism that was out there, there wasn't a ton. I don't know how much it is. You see it on your phone. It looks like it's a whole bunch. It's 2 or 3, or I have no idea how much it actually is. But the criticism was they didn't have things set for WrestleMania. Well, WrestleMania is a few weeks back, so you don't want things set as it normally is done. You're burned out. This match this weekend would not matter at all. If WrestleMania was set, you'd have some good matches. People would tune in, but now the consequences matter. And now you've got these extra weeks to build up to it. So the road to WrestleMania, it starts at Royal Rumble, but it doesn't catch on fire, I don't believe, until Toronto. And now since you've got a longer runway, I think it makes a lot more sense to have the clarity of the WrestleMania and what you're going to have much later than what you normally do, as it's been done in the past several decades.
It's interesting to think too, because after this pay-per-view, we've got 7 weeks of Raw, 7 weeks of SmackDown. I mean,
that's a lot. That is a lot to go without a pay-per-view. I think I know they're PLEs now, pay-per-view.
It's going to be interesting to think, just storyline wise. Usually after the February pay-per-view, we all sort of exhale and say, okay, now we know what WrestleMania is. But with 7 weeks, it could change.
A lot of things could change, and I think a lot of things will. I mean, I think they're doing great. I saw the clip one that Hunter put out about, hey, these guys think they know somebody in the inner circle, and they put out that they know the news, they know what's going to happen. And he said nobody does. I think they're taking great pride in swerving everybody. So I don't think, even if things look set come this weekend, I don't think they'll be set, because I think Hunter and those guys, I mean, I got to tell you, I'm blown away when I've dealt with Hunter, how much he's like Vince. And I mean, in an incredibly positive way, as far as his knowledge of the business, as far as how he grasps stuff. He's surrounded by great people. I mean, you got Michael Hayes up there. You got Bruce Prichard. You got Road Dogg. You got Ed Koskey. You've got all these incredible writing team. But those guys themselves, these are incredibly talented guys. And that's why I think these storylines are so well done.
We got a question here live from Jason Taylor, who knows a thing or two about helping you with your taxes in real life, by the way. If you're listening, look for Jason Taylor. But he says, is WWE hotshotting the promotion, or is their roster so loaded and the promotion is so hot that they have major cards every month? Once upon a time, John, we've heard that, sure, Bill Dundee helped pop Bill Watts' territory. He just hotshotted the thing, and then what? I don't know if that's what's happening right now, though, because there's so much talent. What say you, John?
They are so deep. It's unbelievable that the talent they have, because now it's not like you had, like during our day. We had an incredibly talented roster, and I put that roster up against any roster in history. But they have double our roster, because they have a women's side also, and we didn't. We had a women's division, but it wasn't used for wrestling. It was used more for show and tell. We had very pretty ladies. They were athletic. They could have wrestled, but they weren't trained to wrestle, and that wasn't their job. Now you have not only an incredibly talented roster on the men's side, you have double that, because you also have this incredibly talented women's side. So it's hard to compare eras here about what's hot shot and what's not, because you literally have twice the amount of talent. I saw the first Netflix show that they did, and I thought, man, how are you going to – this is like WrestleMania. And then you start seeing them back off just a little bit. And that's what you do. You hot shot a couple things that you have to do, then you start just having your regular shows. A lot of things looked hot shotted, but I think it's because the roster – I agree with you, Conrad. It's so deep, and legitimately it's double the size of the roster that we had in the late 90s.
We are going to throw you guys the keys to the show, just like we did there with Jason Taylor. It really is Ask JBL Anything. But before we get started, I got to ask JBL. Actually, I don't have to ask JBL. What's his favorite whole body deodorant? It's Mando. By the way, you would think that this was, hey, listen, go back to me for a second. This is real. I got Mando right here. Mando is a great product. I'm a big believer. You should be too. It's safe to use anywhere on your body. I've put this on my pits, on my balls, on my thigh folds, on my belly button, on my butt crack, on my feet. Listen, Mando's good for the whole body. It's created by a doctor who saw firsthand how normal BO is being misdiagnosed and mistreated. It's been clinically proven to block odor all day and control odor for up to 72 hours. You just saw me holding up the spray deodorant. Well, it's aluminum free and ideal for those hard to reach places. But the solid stick deodorant, that's the one my wife uses. It's formulated and powered by mandelic acid to stop odor before it starts. All their products are baking soda free and paraben free, and they've got a lot of fresh scents like bourbon leather or clover woods or Mount Fuji or Pro Sport. That's the one I held up. It's been clinically proven, Mando that is, to control odor better than just to shower with soap alone. And if you're ready to try America's #1 whole body deodorant, well, I got good news for you. You can find Mando in Walmart, Target, and other retailers across the country. But for the best deals and to support our show, we want you to go to shopmando.com. That's where you'll see that Mando Starter Pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with that solid stick deodorant, the cream tube deodorant, and 2 free products of your choice, like mini body wash and deodorant wipes, and free shipping. And there's a special offer for our listeners. New customers can get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code. That's like 40% off your starter pack when you use the code STW at shopmando.com. That's SHOPMANDO.com. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. You'll smell fresher, you'll stay drier, and boost your confidence from head to toe with Mando. So, John, we got a ton of questions. There's no way to get to them all, and I appreciate you quote tweeting it. But, man, we got even more questions because of that. Let's dig through some of them.
Cool.
Here's a question from Bryant. Bryant wants to know, at Extreme Rules 08, you have a first blood match with John Cena. The month prior, WWE changed to PG, and the mandate was passed there should be no blood on TV. How do you and Cena put a match together for a first blood match when there's not supposed to be blood?
We had blood, didn't we?
You did, but like it's like freshly removed from the PG thing where we mandate no blood. I mean, that feels like, all right, you're getting a stern talking to from your dad. Don't take the car out anymore and you're grounded. After tonight, here's the keys. Have a good time. Like, what is this?
You know what? I never heard there was a blood ban. I saw this question and you know, I was going through your list of questions kind of to get a fresher, and I did see this question. I didn't know there was a blood ban, and there may have been. Was there, Conrad? I'm asking you, and I was there.
I mean, yeah, the blood was banned, and even if you remember, gosh, it was probably 10 years ago. It was more than 10 years ago now. There was that SummerSlam in New York where Brock Lesnar opened up Randy Orton the hard way.
Yeah.
Like, not the easy way, if you know what I mean. And that was really controversial at the time, but I guess the idea was there was a no blading rule. I mean, allegedly, we've even heard from Batista through the years that he got fined for getting color. I know that Ric Flair did at WrestleMania 8. So there's been sort of hokey pokey moments where, hey, if it happens just naturally, that's one thing, but we're not going to do the barbaric self-mutilation or whatever it's been called. But yeah, I think that narrative's been out there for a long time. But you're saying as a member of the crew, you don't remember hearing that.
No, and I was in a match that had blood in it. So you know, it's a couple things. First, that Batista match. You know, I think Batista got fined. I think Dave said $100,000 or something. I mean, it was a massive amount. It was a lot of money. And I think Jericho got fined $10,000, and Kyoto may have got fined also. But Jericho told me the story. I'm sure he's told it to a lot of people. You know, Vince sat him in there, you know, in front of TV monitors. They had all these different angles. And, you know, all they had to do was ask him, did you juice? They would have said yes. And they had, you know, the camera angles to show that, you know, what happened. And, you know, Vince just kind of looked at him like I don't know. He was mad. And I guess Jericho, I don't even know if Chris was in on it or else. I don't know. I don't want to speak for Chris. I don't want to say something that's wrong because I've heard Chris tell the story. I heard him tell it after it happened. And when Chris got fined, it was because Vince said he must have known or something like that, whatever it was. But there's a difference in juicing like that when you're not being told to, and not being allowed to juice, period, across the company. That's a massive difference. What they were in trouble for, my understanding, was that it wasn't cleared. And that, you know, they kind of went to business for yourself, which guys did some back in the day, but not that much. I would have never done that on a pay-per-view, I don't think. Maybe Dave thought he had permission from an agent or something. I don't know. I don't know the whole situation with Dave and with Chris, but I think the issue was that it wasn't cleared. Not that there was a blood ban. There may have been a blood ban, but I didn't know about it, and I was the one juicing.
I love you for that. We got a question here from Dirty Dog Darcy, who wants to know, what does it mean 20 years later for JBL to hold the WWE title? I want to have a business discussion with you and then just a personal conversation. Business-wise, I've seen or I've heard from guys who, when they're fresh off of WWE programming, they're asking prices more. And because they're fresh off of TV, they feel like they're going to be a bigger draw to individual promoters across the country or even the globe at this point. And we've also heard guys like the Rock and Roll Express say once they could say they were WWE Hall of Famers, it meant more to them financially in the future. Has that been your experience using the WWE World Championship piece of your resume? Or was it really just a personal thing that, hey man, I know what wrestling is and it's entertainment and it was my job, but it does make it feel like I have a more complete career because I was the world champion. Can you speak to both sides, both business and personally?
Yeah, I'll speak the personal side first. My youngest memories was telling my grandfather I wanted to be a world champion wrestler. We used to watch the Von Erichs together, but before then it was Von Erich. It was only Fritz. And I always had that goal in mind that I wanted to be a world champion. I told my grandfather I want to play pro football and be a professional wrestling world champion. I got the fortunate opportunity to do both. And I think my career would have been lacking a little bit. I've said many times that if I had just been an APA member because of my love of Ron Simmons and our friendship, I'd have been fine with that. But because Ron was a little bit older and he retired earlier than me, I had the chance to be a singles and get that run. And it really completed my career. I always thought I could do it. And if I had gone through my entire career without having done it, I think I would have always had that doubt. Could I have done it? Because, I'd held titles in a lot of different territories, never in WWE, not the main one. I never had, I've been in some main events, but it's always a guest spot in the main event. It wasn't because of merit that I deserved to be there. Anybody thought I was really going to win a championship or anything. When I got to that main event, it was something that I always had wanted to do that I thought I could do. And then when I figured out that I could do it, thankfully surrounded because I had Hall of Fame talent I was going against, it really, my career I look back on now and I think it helped finish it. I don't think there's any doubt about it. I think it would have had a hole in my career if I didn't have that. That's why I hate, some of these guys who've just as good or better than me, and they never became a world champion, and they should have. A lot of guys should have become world champions, and for whatever reason, the lot didn't go to them. And so I was very lucky in that respect. From a business point of view, I think it matters. Yeah. I don't know how much, I go to autograph sessions and me and Ron are both sitting there and, I'm sitting there by the first recognized black world heavyweight champion from a major promotion and another world champion with me. And I think that helps, but I don't know how much and I don't know how to quantify that.
I do think it's interesting when you talk about personally what it meant and how many guys do have that hole in their career, because you've been pretty honest in saying a lot of fans draw a parallel between the $1 Million Man persona that Ted DiBiase did fabulously a generation before you, and then you come behind it, and maybe it's a little different presentation, but fans certainly make that comparison. And he's a guy, when we talk about great wrestlers who never became world champion, he'd be near the top of the list, right?
100%. It's one of those things that Ted didn't need the title. He had his $1 million title, and Ted didn't. Ted was such a great worker. But, if I'm Ted, I think, I would kind of feel like, why didn't I get just one run? Because I think Ted should have. I think Ted should have been the WWE champion. I think he should have been for a long time. I think Piper should have. I think Dustin Rhodes, especially as Goldust. I thought Goldust should have been champion. I thought he'd have been a great champion. He was a great worker who did everything and had incredible heat. I mean, there's tons and tons of guys. Sheldon Benjamin should have been a world champion. There's so many guys out there that now, back in the day, you look at Goldust. You say he doesn't need the title. You're right, he didn't. But at some point, don't you give it to him? Not just as a favor, but because it's meritocracy, because he deserves it. Same with Ted and same with Hot Rod. A lot of guys were like that. Gorgeous George never had a bunch of titles around because he had so much heat. He didn't need it. That was like the old mindset of guys that were so over that you thought they didn't need it, but then they get done with their career and you kind of, why weren't those guys world champions? And a lot of times it's because of Ted DiBiase, because they were really that good.
Here's one from JP. He says, if the character change of JBL had not happened, what other direction could you see your character going in 2004?
I think I see my correct character being retired. I don't see much for JBL. I mean, for Bradshaw, you know, that they had tried to do a couple things. Every time it happened, I was snake bit. I was supposed to work with a couple different guys that when they left the company or somebody got injured or whatever happened. Then I got injured and I got injured again. I mean, just had bad luck after bad luck after bad luck. In 2004, I was doing so much for the military where I was going overseas and I was kind of the liaison between WWE and the armed forces that I think that was kind of going to be my role for the rest of my career. I just got lucky and they needed somebody to face Eddie Guerrero and they needed somebody right away. And Vince called me and said, hey, we've got this idea. You've talked to me about this character before. Here's my idea. Do you want to do this? And of course I wanted to try it. So I don't know what Bradshaw would have done by himself. I don't think much.
Did you have another idea besides this J.R. Ewing inspired character that, you know, maybe drew inspiration from $1 Million Man? Did you ever have another character idea?
Yeah, I'd pitched more kind of the Bradshaw type character to Vince, just kind of a more. It was a cowboy, but it just every time I tried to do something with it, you know, I went through different haircuts. You know, a lot of that was from Vince, some of that was from me to try to get a different look. You know, went to short hair, I went to clean shaven. I had a lot of different things I tried, but every time I did something, I got hurt. Or my opponent got hurt, you know, and I just had bad luck with it. So yeah, I pitched a couple things, but the main one was this JBL type character that I had pitched a couple years before. And then Vince had kind of turned it around his own mind. It became his own character. And then he pitched it back to me.
Mike wants to know, in your opinion, how vital was Spike Dudley to the overall presentation of the Dudley Boys? I think Spike easily gets overlooked and doesn't get his just due in the group. Do you have any good Spike Dudley stories?
Spike was, you know, he had rubber bones. You know, it was. I've never seen guys take bumps like that. That one that Undertaker gave him, that choke slam over the top rope to the floor, I'd have killed the normal person. And it's not just because Spike is lighter. I mean, he's just, for some reason, he doesn't get hurt. You know, obviously he's very, very tough, but even very tough guys get hurt. You know, something about Spike in his body didn't. I've seen him recently. You know, he was on me and Jerry's show, Stories with Brisco and Bradshaw. Love Spike. He's a financial consultant and doing great. Doesn't really care about wrestling, just doesn't really watch, you know, which is kind of strange because he loved it so much. But Spike was just a guy who came along that for some reason didn't get hurt. And the Dudleys, I think, were much better with him.
Jordan Oliver, friend of the show and a heck of an independent wrestler, says, what makes a good wrestling character? So, John, when you think about a successful wrestling character, whether it's a good guy or a bad guy, do they have any commonality that you think every wrestling character needs to have?
Connection. Yeah, 100%. It's all about connection. I mean, look at the Undertaker character. You know, Mark Calloway is a great, big, tough guy. Mean Mark was a good worker, but that character's silly. Here's a guy who's dead, who's not dead. He's going to do all kinds of supernatural stuff. Pitch that to a creative team. That never works. And we're going to bury him. Then he's going to actually be alive. You think people will believe that? People did. I don't know if they believed it. They cared. You know, the difference between people that believe and people that care, and they cared. You know, that's one of the greatest characters in the history of the business, all because of Mark Calloway. Now, the difference in that is Mark had a way to connect with the people. You know, any character that can connect can draw rating, can draw money, can draw people in seats, but you've got to be able to connect. That people make the mistake that I got to get the right character. And that character doesn't matter. You got to connect.
We got a question here from Carrie. This is a great one. Would you have been a good fit in WCW prior to the NWO era? Now that's interesting because he writes here, JBL. We'll table that character for just a minute. But Justin Hawk Bradshaw, man, I could totally see that guy in WCW.
I think so. Yeah, it was a Southern character. I think Dusty would have loved it. I think the Southern bookers would have liked it. I think they would have. You know, I didn't know anybody, and so you know, I'd be going down there just fresh and without any benefactor. So you never know. You know, you don't know if you get lost in the shuffle or not. But I see the roster down there at the time, And a lot of the workers that ended up migrating up to WWE, from Stone Cold and Pillman and Dustin and Barry and so many of those guys, I would love to have been part of that crew. You had Butch and Ron, you had the Steiners, you had Booker and Stevie, you had so many guys that I would have loved to have been able to work with, and I worked with later in different iterations. But yeah, I think, who knows if I'd done well. I think I'd have been very happy there.
Great question here from Michael Pagnotti. He says, okay, so Swoggle says this spot wasn't planned. Is this true? And if so, explain what went through your brain when you decided to do this. Of course, we're talking about when you launched a trash can at Swoggle. This is an all-time great moment. It makes me laugh every time I see it. I know I'm a bad person for laughing. But he says it wasn't a planned spot. Did that just hit you in the ring? Did someone get in your ear ahead of time? Talk me through this.
It hit me 100% in the ring. I'm at WrestleMania and I'm seeing him out there just kind of working the crowd and stuff, and Finley's beating the shit. Finley's beating me up. Finley, it was an honor to work with Fit. I love Dave. I've told you how much I respect him, one of the greatest workers of all time. To get WrestleMania with Finley, especially after seeing him in Europe for a couple of years, it was a huge honor. And then I see Hornswoggle outside, who was working the crowd and stuff, and I thought, I'm going to kill that little bastard. And so that's what I was thinking. I just thought, I'm going to get him with a trash can. If you look at it, I snuck up on him. I kind of moved around, grabbed the trash can, all of a sudden turned like Nolan Ryan, just hurled it at him and tried to get the little bastard. Yeah, it became one of these iconic moments that in WrestleMania history, but no, it wasn't planned. None of it was planned. But the match wasn't planned. I mean, Finley and I are hitting each other with stuff, on the head like crazy, right and left. None of that was planned either. We just went out there and decided to tear a bunch of stuff up, and Hornswoggle was part of the match. So it's something that's just called on the fly. It wasn't, and there's no malice to it, by the way. There's no malice to it, like, I'm going to get that guy right. Well, there was none of that. Absolutely zero of that. It was just, I thought this was good for the show. It made sense that I'm the bad guy, and I'm going to turn around and get, beat up by something with Dave after going after his son. I thought, the whole storyline, I thought it worked. I recently hit Hornswoggle again with the trash can over Christmas. I'm going to Wrestling Con this summer up in Wisconsin, and I plan on hitting him with a trash can again. And by the time this airs, I could have hit another leprechaun with a trash can. So one of my New Year's resolutions is to hit all the leprechauns in the world with trash cans. And clothesline people, but that's separate. But I'm going to hit all of them with trash cans this year.
Like that's your Pokemon. You're trying to collect them all.
100%. It's 100%. It means a lot to me. Every time I hit a leprechaun with a trash can, I just like check it off. It's like getting a coin, that you need for your collection. It means a lot to me. And I think it's something valuable to the world. I think the world needs leprechauns hit with trash cans.
I appreciate that you're having this very difficult conversation and really opening eyes and raising awareness, because I, for one, have just been hauling my trash can to the road every Thursday night. I've never once considered picking it up and throwing it at a little person.
And the thing about it is, it's legal. Well, a lot of people don't know that. Like in West Texas, coyotes come and they'll harm your animals, so you can shoot them anytime you want. It's legal. It's called the varmint law. Very similar to the varmint law, there's a leprechaun law that you can hit a leprechaun with any trash can anytime you want, any time of day, whether they're looking or not. So for people out there, if you see a leprechaun, you got trash cans, hit that little bastard. It's what the world needs.
With your political influence, I think you could message Governor of Alabama, Kay Ivey, and we might actually could have like hit a leprechaun day here in Alabama. Can you work on that for us?
I will be happy to work on that. Yes. I would love that. Yes. I'd love that. And we both know the mayor of Knoxville that we can call in as well.
I forgot about that. That'd be a shoe in there.
I think the mayor of Knoxville would approve the hit a leprechaun day.
Quarter Ton on Twitter says, who on any current roster that's currently portrayed as a baby face do you think could hit it out of a park as a heel if given the chance? And don't say Cody.
It's got to be Cody. That's the only
easy one, though. Give me another one.
It's got to be Cody. You look at him and go, man, when that guy turns heel, because you got to be over as a baby face to turn heel. Otherwise, nobody cares. So many times, we're going to turn them heel. They're not a good baby face. They don't care. So
Could it work with Jey Uso, or do the fans love the dance so much it'll never work?
I think Jey Uso needs a longer run first.
Yeah.
Let Jey Uso really get over. Let him get a title. Let him get some more, and then let him turn heel and go back to the bloodline or whatever he wants to do. I think Jey Uso could – a kid, I say he's a kid's grown man. He can do anything, and I think he'd be great at that. But I think he needs a further run as a babyface.
I mean, we got to work on Cody. I know he didn't want to hear it. He gets mad every time I bring it up, but there's like a little something in his eye or something in his smile where you're like, man, when he's ready,
yeah,
he'd be just the most effective, dynamic heel ever. But man, he's doing so much good as sort of Cena 2.0, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, and he's selling all the merch. I mean, you think about it, this is an economic argument. This is not just a creative argument. You know, when Cena was selling half the merch of the company, you're like, okay, wait a minute. If we turn him heel, half the merch is gone. And so it was an economic argument as much as it was a creative argument.
It is interesting to think Jason Taylor's with us live, and he correctly points out turning heel changed Roman's career. You know, when you take a look at the current baby faces, I mean, I guess he's a baby face. I don't think they're going to turn Cody yet. If I'm going to do that, I think I'd wait and do it later. But it could work for CM Punk right now. I mean, what a great heel he is.
CM Punk's a great heel. I mean, a terrific heel. And I like him more as a heel because I like heels, you know, and I like CM Punk personally as well as professionally. I think CM Punk would be a great heel. I mean, I think he'd be fantastic. I think there's so much about him, and he doesn't care. When I say he doesn't care, he understands the business. He doesn't mind cutting the promos that need to be cut because he doesn't care about the social media fallout. I think CM Punk would be great.
The other two that come to mind that might be fun to see as heels, Bianca Belair. It feels like she's cooled off a little bit as a babyface, but I don't think we've ever seen her as a heel. And Sami Zayn, because it's just been so long since he's been anything other than this beloved figure. I could see either one of those really working, switching.
You know, Sammy, when he first came in, I talked to him a lot. He was kind of like Steamboat. He had never been a heel anywhere. And
right.
he was a good heel. He was really good. You know, Sammy's just a talented, intelligent guy. I think Sammy would be a great heel. I think Bianca is the one that she would be so. You know, you want to turn somebody heel that you don't expect. You know, that people like. You know, and Bianca's I think fits all of that. I think it's somebody that nobody would really expect. And it's kind of like Crockett used to always tell me when we'd have our little talks, and he would say, you know, you want to have the heel. Like, okay, I can get behind this person. And then all of a sudden they do something right at the end. You go, why would they do that? I was wanting to like them. That's the kind of heel I think Bianca could be.
What about LA Knight? Do you think LA Knight could hit as a heel?
I think he could, yeah, because he's over. And I think he could do really well as a heel. I think it'd be harder for him because he's be more of an attraction heel. And that's not a bad thing. And by the way, I don't mean that in any disparaging way. Roman Reigns was an attraction heel, and he headlined more WrestleManias than anybody in history. See, I think there's just two different type of heels. I think there's the attraction heel like the Freebirds, like the NWO, like DX, like Roman Reigns. You know, and those guys made a ton of freaking money. Then I think there's your pure heels, you know, like the Sheik, like Gorgeous George, like Roddy Piper, Yusuf Ismail, the original heel, the original Turkish monster. So there's a difference. I think LA Knight would be more of an attraction heel, which is just a different version, in my opinion.
Let's talk a little bit about Jack Gaffney's question. He says, John, the JBL and Cole show became a cult favorite with fans. Did you have any idea it would take off like it did? And how much of it was just you and Cole goofing off versus something actually scripted? Was there ever anything you guys filmed that WWE wouldn't let you air?
They didn't care what we aired. They didn't even watch it, you know, at all. They didn't care at all. You know, what we wanted to do, me and Michael had an idea for this show, was to give guys that didn't really have a creative outlet a creative outlet. You know, we created Bad News Barrett when we were on there. And Wade did an incredible job. Cody was on there all the time because he saw that this was a chance for him to have a creative outlet that he didn't have somewhere else. Daniel Bryan was on there all the time, you know, and he was one of the top guys. And so Daniel kind of had to sneak on and do the show because this, you got to understand, there was no benefactor for the show. So there wasn't a writer that was behind it. So nobody cared about the show. At one point, they told Cole, said, "Hey, man, you need to be a little less goofy." I go, "What about me?" They go, "Oh, don't worry about it." So it's like, it's because WWE didn't have anybody that was writing this show except for Brian Pellegato, who was with WWE, who did an incredibly creative guy, an incredible creative job there, and a wonderful job. Nobody really cared. So nobody watched it. I mean, nobody on WWE watched it. Nobody cared. Now they're doing stuff like this. But back then we were ahead of everything else, and I thought the show was really good. I thought it gave guys an outlet, but WWE could not care less about that show.
It was so good. I mean, it was ahead of its time. Timing's everything. If it came around today, can you imagine how popular that show would be?
It was ahead of its time. Now you look at the show numbers, and their show's numbers are huge. I mean, we had guys, that were people loved to be on our show. When we would go around, Road Dogg used to get mad because he goes, "Man, more guys want to be on your show than mine." His was SmackDown. Because we did the show and guys were like, "Hey, I want to be on the JBL and Cole show." And they tell me, "Wait a minute." Guys love being on the show because it was so much fun. But we didn't have anybody that was pitching this to the higher up, specifically Vince or Kevin. And so there was nobody really that nobody cared. I mean, no one cared. No one watched it. No one cared. They didn't even know what we did.
Hey, here's one. This is from Matt Carmen. He wants to know, do you have any good Tajiri stories?
No. I saw this question. I started thinking about it. I thought, no, I don't. I don't have any. I liked Tajiri, and I thought he was a really good worker. I thought he was fun with the Muda Mist and all that stuff. But no, I was never around him as far as at parties or riding in cars or anything. So no, he could be the most entertaining guy in the world. He could be the most boring guy in the world. I have absolutely no idea.
I've heard for years that Tajiri would, quote unquote, kayfabe that he spoke English. And so guys would assume he didn't speak English and he would keep it up. And then every now and again, in front of the right person, he would dust off nearly perfect English. Is that just a thing with half of international talent? Because it does feel like I've heard that about so many guys. Can it be true? Are the workers the ultimate workers? What are we doing here?
I heard the same thing about Taka. I heard the same thing about so many different luchadors. I have no idea if any of it's true. We'd always accuse Taka of knowing English. They put Taka with the Breakwas one time because they wanted to teach him English. All they did was speak Spanish in the car. So Taka may have learned Spanish, but he didn't learn any English with it. I have no idea why they did that, but I've heard that for years about guys, Japanese guys, Mexican guys that, they speak perfect English. No idea if that's true or not.
Eric wants to know, whose idea was the cabinet for your JBL character, and did you have any say in the members?
I did have some say in it, and Vince ran them by me. I had no issue with any of them, of course. I thought they were all really, really talented guys. That was Vince's idea, to have something around me. The Bashams were one of the first, and then Orlando, who's incredibly talented. Amy Weber was just kind of given to me. That was from Vince as the talent that came in. And Vince said, "Hey, we've got this really talented young lady, very pretty. Going to put her with you." That's all I really knew. I mean, if I wanted to say, no, I'm not going to work with her, I had somebody else in mind, I guess I could have, but that was the only one that wasn't really run by me. But she was fantastic. She was really good. Amy Weber was really talented. I wish she would have stayed because she was really good at what she did.
FH89 says, realistically, was there ever a chance where JBL could see himself jump on over to WCW? And where does he think he would have fit in on the roster had that happened? So did you ever have any conversation? I know you said up front back when you were Justin Hawk Bradshaw, you didn't have an in there, but you think maybe Dusty would have gotten behind the character. And I could see that Justin Hawk Bradshaw character working matches with Sting or Cactus Jack, or I think it just lends itself to a WCW presentation. But you had all these different versions, the new Blackjacks, and of course you did the APA, and then there was the Acolytes before that, and then the J.R. Ewing style character. Would any of those work in WCW? Do you think one would have worked better than others? Did you ever even have a preliminary conversation or an overture at any point with anyone in WCW?
I don't know if the JBL character would have worked or not. Vince kind of saw that as, I think Vince kind of used JBL as JBL is what Vince would have been if he could have wrestled.
Yes.
Because I know that Vince would I could see it riding. You know, this is what Vince wanted to do, and so I understood that mindset very well. So I don't know if JBL would have worked in WCW because you wouldn't have had this head of creative that was so behind it. But no, I never had a conversation, not one. I met Eric Bischoff after the Japanese tour that I went on with Barry Windham working for Baba. Met him in the airport in Narita coming back. You know, had a concussion and barely remember it. But he brought up, you know, what Dustin was doing as far as Gold Dust and what WWE was doing as far as the Attitude Era, where they're going, you know, what he thought was a little bit crazy, which was crazy. But he didn't offer me a job, never mention it, nothing. And I never had any overtures from that I know of. I talked with Mike Graham one time, but I don't think it was that serious about going. But no, I never had anything that was materialistic. No one wanted me.
I love you for that. I can't help but think, though, in an alternate universe, and I know the timeline doesn't line up, but imagine if you would have been able to take the JBL character and drop it off in ECW.
Oh my God. I would have done that in a heartbeat. I'd have worked for free. Absolutely for free. What King did in 96, 97, whatever year it was just absolutely freaking amazing. When I got to do it in 04 and 05, I'd never had an experience like that. I would love to have been JBL in ECW when ECW was at its absolute hottest. That would have been the most fun you could ever have in the world.
I don't know how well it would have paid, but it would have been a lot of fun.
Correct. It may not have paid well, and check might not have cleared.
Josh sent us an image that we get here on the show at least once a day, every day. I can't imagine how many times you've seen it. Everybody wants to know whose idea was the hat on the halo.
That was mine, 100%. It was my idea before I even went through the limousine. I had the idea to do all that stuff. We had the halo. And now that day I put the hat on top of the halo. I remember I was so proud of it. I interrupted the production meeting and showed Vince, and Vince just died laughing. He goes, "That's great. I love it." And so, yeah, that was 100% my idea.
Brandon over on Twitter wants to know whose idea was it to put the Longhorns on the limo? You mentioned the limo and people love the Longhorns. Whose idea was that?
Vince always said that my entrance was one of, if not the greatest that he had ever created. He loved the entrance. So whether that's true or not, I don't know. That's Vince's opinion. But Vince came up with all that. Vince came up with the limousine. Vince came up with the Longhorns. Vince 100%. That was all. It was all Vince.
Cody Stark wants to know: do you have a favorite clothesline from hell?
Yeah, you know, Billy Gunn would always take it like I turned him inside out. You know, Billy's such a freaking athlete. I just saw him the other day. That guy ages backwards, by the way. Oh my God, he looks great. I'm so jealous of Billy. I was jealous of him back then too, because he was a better athlete than me back then. Billy always took it like you just turned him inside out, you know. And Billy's an old bull rider. Billy is a double tough guy, by the way. But Billy used to bitch about getting hit. You know, a lot of the old guys, and me and Billy are both old guys now, you would love to bitch. It was kind of an art about how much they'd bitch about getting hit. They really didn't care. They just enjoyed bitching. Billy enjoyed bitching. Billy didn't care. He's double tough. You couldn't hurt him if you tried, but Billy used to love bitching about everything.
Well, I'm sure a few people have bitched about the clothesline from hell, but nobody ever bitches about. I'm
sure they did.
Nobody bitches about Blue Chew. Have better sex with Blue Chew. Blue Chew is the original brand offering chewable tablets. These erection-enhancing tablets help men achieve stronger, harder, and longer-lasting erections for sexual activities. John calls his gimmick the erection from hell. Blue Chew is putting its money where its mouth is, and it's offering you a month free. And the process is simple, boys. You just sign up at BlueChew.com. You consult with one of their licensed medical providers. And once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. Blue Chew's tablets are made in the USA. They're prepared and shipped directly to your door, and you can take them anytime, day or night. So plan ahead or be ready whenever an opportunity arises. And the best part is it's all done online, and that means no visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversation, and no waiting in line at the pharmacy. So make your life easier by getting harder and discover your options at BlueChew.com. And we've got a special deal for our listeners. Try your first month of Blue Chew free. Visit BlueChew.com for more details and important safety information. And we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring today's podcast. We talked about those favorite clotheslines from hell. Did you ever have one where you got hurt yourself? Like, because we've heard from Nigel McGuinness before that he tore not one of his biceps, but both of his biceps. Did you ever hurt yourself with a clothesline?
Oh yeah, Godfather told me we were wrestling at WrestleMania, whatever it was, down in Houston, in the Astrodome, and Godfather was on the other side. I'm gonna hit him with a clothesline for a finish, and he literally almost threatened me. Yeah, I say threatened. We're good friends. He goes, "You better hit me the hardest you've ever hit anybody in your life." And he kept telling me that over and over. He is a double tough dude. He's just. I love Godfather. I got to spend the weekend with him and Ron in England recently. I love those guys. I hit him so freaking hard. I thought I blew out my shoulder. I mean, my whole arm was black. It was oh my God, it was a collision. It was unbelievable. Almost knocked myself out when I hit him so hard.
Mayhem wants to know, when you were participating in Wrestler's Court, would you have rather been representing defense or prosecution? Also, did you have a certain tactic that you would always try or ever do any lawyer skits? So what was your role in Wrestler's Court? Just take us through, your happy place of Wrestler's Court.
Oh, I was a prosecutor, always the prosecutor, 100%. I would never defend anybody. Nobody ever won a case except the prosecutor. Of course, it was rigged. That's why I always won. I'm like Jerry Spence, except mine was fixed. Let me explain to you how Wrestler's Court would happen. Here, two guys. Now, we're on the road all the time. So somebody come to me and go, "Hey, man, I'm going to take so-and-so to Wrestler's Court." Now, 99% of the time, it was not serious. It was like, what happened? They didn't pay their tab, and I got stuck with it, or whatever happened. It'd be something funny. Most of the time, it's something funny that they had done, and it was something wrong, but, it was all tongue-in-cheek. So then I would go to Taker, and I'd say, "Okay, here's our potential Wrestler's Court. What do you think?" And he'd sit there and think about it, and he'd debate, and I'd throw in my opinion. Should we settle this out of court? And if we settle out of court, what's the penalty going to be? And if both sides agree, then they don't go to court. Or is it going to be so entertaining that we need to go to court with it? So we would debate this. This was an intricate process now. This Wrestler's Court was not taken lightly by anybody. And so we would debate. Now, most of the time, if there's two really funny guys, it always went to court because these guys were going to be hilarious in court. That's what we wanted, because we would tell them in court, "Listen, we're going to make you tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God, unless you want to lie. And if you want to lie and it's creative, we wholeheartedly approve." So there were no rules in Wrestler's Court except be entertaining. So then we figured out if we want to go to court with it, and if we did, then I was the prosecutor. Either Kane or Godfather was the bailiff, Undertaker was the judge, and then whoever was on the defense side would have to hire an attorney. Now, the fact that they're guilty, that's already known before we go to court. It's just a matter of how guilty are they.
I love that. Thank you for the explanation. Context is king. I like to hear that. JD Power, no associates. What a great name that is. Bravo, kind sir. He wants to know, what are your biggest regrets in your career? Do you have any regrets? Does one come to mind immediately, John?
I've got so many things I either did stupid or did wrong or got hurt, and, opportunities wasted. But it's one of those things, and, I'm not one of those guys, I have no regrets, but you can't have regrets because I'm fine where I am right now. And I'm not sitting here and saying, I'm blessed. God bless me. I hate those guys that do that. Like, "Oh, my life is so blessed." Like, okay, screw you. You're that happy, and you got to tell everybody about it. I'm fine where I am right now, and wherever that is, I'm fine with it. And if you change something on the chessboard of your life before you get this moment, it changes everything. And who knows where I'd be if something was changed, even if it was something stupid that I did that I probably shouldn't have done. So I don't really have regrets enough to say I wish I would have done something different.
Let's not try to have a serious conversation. Let's make it lighthearted. Do you regret not getting to work a match with this guy or that guy, or a program with this guy or that guy? Like, where the timelines would have permitted it, it could have technically happened. It just didn't.
Yeah. There was a time they were going to put me in a match with Steve, and I left the building early.
Oh God.
Oh, fuck. Billy got hurt or something, and oh my God, they put me out there 2 weeks straight with the same guy and just did a hardcore match and had me get beat. They were so mad. Guys used to leave early because we had different shows, and they had somebody they needed somebody for the main event. They're gonna put me in there, and stupid. I got punished for about a month for it, but longer than that because I didn't get the opportunity. Yeah, there were so many people I'd love to have worked with. I mean, you can't take them out of history, but Magnum TA to me was a guy that I'd love to have worked with. Regal was a guy I was supposed to work with. I had this whole program set. I tore my bicep. They were going to blame it on him. He was actually in the ring with me at the time, but I think Chavo drop kicked me. I can't remember who it was, out of the ring, and I grabbed the rope and snapped my bicep, and they were going to blame it on Regal. That's when Regal went and almost died. And so I never got to work the program. That was one of the, mishaps that I had. So yeah, there were a lot of times that things happened that I wish could have been different.
When you were saying Regal almost died, is that the parasite thing?
Yeah, that's the parasite. I believe that's the parasite thing. Yeah, when he went down and almost died, I guess down in Africa or something.
India, I think maybe.
India. What it was. One of those foreign continents.
Not Alabama or Texas.
No, it wasn't Alabama or Texas. If it was Oklahoma, he'd have called it the dumbass and would have never got rid of it. He'd end up addicted to freaking bingo.
I love it. Sean Brown has a fun question I know you'll enjoy. How did you get started in investing, John? What are you looking for when trading stocks? Who do you follow on social media for tips? What books did you read? Did you get in on the GameStop craziness?
Okay, first the GameStop craziness. I got a buddy that did get in on it, but he got in on it through the chat rooms. So he was following the chats, which is all
Reddit. Yeah.
Reddit, which is 100% legal.
Yeah.
And he made a lot of money off this. He's a big hedge fund guy. He's got, he's made a lot of money in his life. But I was always worried I was going to be the last one in. It's like, in musical chairs, if you don't end up getting a chair, you end up falling on your ass. And I was always worried I'd be the one. So I didn't get in the GameStop because of that. I was always scared of the momentum stocks. I got into investing in 96, 97 when I first started making a little bit of money because I'd played a little football, didn't have any money, and always said I'd invest when I did. I just read a ton of books. Peter Lynch's Know What You Own was one of the best books that I ever read. So I had an idea to write my own financial book for people like me that didn't like financial books. So that's why I wrote the book. But I read a ton of books, and I got lucky. The first investments I made were in 97, I believe it was. It was an Asian crisis, which I didn't know was a crisis at the time. I was just lucky to get in at that time. I bought Oracle and Applied Materials, my first two stocks, and they went straight up, and because of where I bought them, I got incredibly lucky where I bought them. I thought, man, it's a lot easier way than making money than taking bumps. So I started investing after that, and I invest in very safe stuff. I don't look at something and go, okay, this is going to double in a month. I look at this, is this going to be an 8 to 10% grower for the next 10 years? And that's how I invest in it. I look at companies that I like, that I understand, and that I can explain. And if I think they're a good company, like I've invested in Walmart for years because there's a Walmart in my hometown in Athens, Texas, and I know how good this store is. And everybody in town shops at this freaking store. I know how good that company is. And then if you look at the financials and think, okay, this is a good time to invest, there's not much way you can go wrong. That's why I've never invested in crypto. I don't understand it. I've had buddies that made a lot of money in it, but Vince, I learned this from Vince. Donald Trump told Vince to invest in some real estate. And Vince told me on the plane one time, he goes, I never did that because I don't understand real estate. Vince wouldn't invest in something he didn't understand. And I've always thought that's the way you should treat investing. Only invest what you can explain very easily.
Chris Cole wants to know, is there anything you wanted to do with the APA that you never got the chance to?
No, I don't think so. I mean, actually, yes. We filmed a pilot for a fishing video one time. I thought it was freaking awesome. The guys that filmed it thought it was freaking awesome. They were going to take it to one of the outdoor channels at the time. They thought it was awesome. WWE didn't like it, and I'm not sure why. I don't. To this day, I don't know why. I thought me and Ron had something really good with this fishing video. We had an APA skit at the end. It was a legit fishing video. Me and Ron are both fishermen. I come from a family of fishermen. My family, the Layfields, They're in Athens, Texas, at the Texas State Fish Hatchery, which George Bush Jr., the former governor of Texas and second Bush president, got put into Athens. There's a huge corner display of Layfield lures.
Wow.
That all my uncles, Cotton and Jester, my granddad's brothers, have, they're Hall of Fame fishermen, have this huge display. I bought it from a guy years ago for $20,000, and I donated it back to the museum. So I come from this family of incredible fishermen, got this great history. In fact, I had the Layfield lure. I don't know if I have one here handy that Rapala Lures was going to put out, and spent a year in research. And they said, this is one of the best lures we've ever heard. It's got like an H&H skirt on top of it that the lure moves this way and the skirt moves differently. So it looks like a wounded fish. It runs about 3 to 4 feet under the water. It's a bass lure. Incredible lure. But then right when they got ready to bring it out, they changed not ownership, they changed management in that division. And the new guy didn't want to do anything with the wrestler. And so they sold me all the lures for $1 a piece. I got like 9,000 lures down in a shed down in Athens, Texas. So we had this fishing show, and I thought it was excellent, especially my history in it. And for whatever reason, WWE didn't see value in it. And I wish they would have gave us a chance.
Dude, I had no idea you were a big fisherman. Layfield lures. How about that?
Layfield lures. My uncles created this, and my cousins would paint them. They would make they had a little lip on the lure that made it dive. So the faster you pull it, the more it dived. They would make that out of hubcaps, and they made the skirt on the back that would move independently of the lure. They'd make that out of raccoon hair. And my uncles didn't have any money. They're very, very poor people. They'd carve them out of trees. And they never made much money with the lure. It became very famous. Some guy who was a Baptist minister told them they could make millions off of it. And of course, that's the guy that cheated them. And they never made any money because of some asshole that took their lure from them.
Man, you've just blown me away. I didn't know that you had a fishing pedigree. And by the way, I really can confirm you're from Texas. Did you say you had an Uncle Cotton?
Cotton and Jester. Yeah.
Cotton Layfield is the most fucking name of all time.
Conrad, my great uncles, my granddad Tom, had his brothers were Cotton, Doodle, Jester, and Bunk. Yeah, but how about that, Dave Silva? Cotton, Doodle, Jester, and Bunk.
Cotton. Yeah. I mean, yeah, we need one of those. Remember those Horseman shirt that just said like Rick, Arn, Tully, Ole?
That's right.
We just got to list them. That is such a great Cotton Doodle. That's not like a phrase. Those are brothers. There's a Doodle Layfield and a Cotton Layfield. Wow. This is amazing.
All these guys, all they like to do is, I think drink and fish. And so my dad was a very religious guy. Dad passed away a few years ago. He was ordained minister. So my dad never wanted me to hang around my uncles. Well, when you got uncles that are famous fishermen that all they want to do is drink and fish, that's who do you think you want to hang around? Except for your uncles.
So when you and Ron did this fishing show, was this a bass fishing show, I assume?
Yeah. We were down there in Athens, Texas. I mean, some of the best bass fishing in the world. Lake Fork, just north of me, is one of the best bass fishing lakes in the world. Georgia holds the world record, 22 pounds. There was one caught in Lake Fork that actually grew bigger than that in the aquarium, but it was like 18 or 19 pounds when it was caught. Fork was one of the best bass fishing lakes in the world. But Athens, all around there, these guys have incredible bass fishing lakes. So we went to a guy who had built this lake specifically for bass fishing. I mean, he had gravel beds on one side for spawning. He had deep underwater. He had all kinds of structure. It was 100% built for bass. This is a multi-million-dollar lake that he had built, and we fished on that lake and caught tons of fish. Had a heck of a day. But yeah, it was all done in East Texas bass fishing.
Man, you got to come check it out. I don't know if you've seen the list, but Gunnersville, Alabama actually makes a lot of the best bass fishing lakes in Alabama, in America. And it's right out that window. So the next time you come down, we got to get you out there. And
I love the bass fish. I almost got kicked out of school because I skipped school so much for bass fishing when I was in high school because I love to fish. I love to worm fish. I never had a boat. I didn't have money to have a boat, so I would fish I'd stand on tree limbs and I'd fish with worms. You pull the worm out and flip it I was real good at flipping and dragging the worms off of stuff and letting it fall. That was how I loved to fish. Never very good in open water because I never did it.
Well, we got to make that happen. My next door neighbor happens to be a professional fisherman. Like that's his full time.
Awesome.
You would get along with him great.
I'll bring some Layfield lures. I've got about 9,000 of them. I just sent some to Ranger Ross and Ron Simmons. Just sent some.
I just can't believe this is a sentence. We got to recreate that fishing show. There would be an appetite.
Oh my God, Conrad, it was unbelievable. You can imagine how entertaining it was. It was awesome. We're sitting out there drinking beer, fishing, having a blast, catching huge fish, by the way. I mean, me and Ron can both fish. We're actually pretty good fishermen. And then at the end, we had like an APA roundup, at the end, a little storytelling. It was awesome.
Did you ever see any Bill Dance TV? Did they have that over in
Oh my God, yeah. Who was the guy? Jimmy, yes. I can't think of the guy's name, Jimmy something. I used to watch the Saturday morning fishing shows all the time.
It's so crazy. What a small world it is. Be Alike wants to know, can you discuss a wrestler career arc that surprised you? Who was someone who made it much bigger than you expected based on your first impression? And who was someone you thought could have blown up much bigger if their circumstances were a little different?
Yeah, Miz, no doubt about it. The Miz, when he came in, and not because the Miz didn't have talent, he did. But how do you learn on national global television? That's impossible. What Miz did is almost an impossibility. He had his first matches on global television. By the time I got to WWE, I probably had 1,000 matches. Most of the guys did. And Miz is having to learn on global television without that educational background of having to work a bunch of territories and all the things that, we got to do. And he has built a Hall of Fame career from that moment. And I think that's incredibly remarkable that he's been able to do that because he didn't have that background like we had.
Scott Blaine wants to do show and tell, and I'm for it. He wants to know, John, what are your thoughts on this shirt and how did this get approved? Of course, this pops up at least once a year when people talk about the worst wrestling shirts ever. APA protection, always pounding ass, bar and grill. Goodness gracious. What'd you think of this?
It was like the door. When they showed us the door, Ron goes, yeah, leave it. They showed us the draw up for this shirt. Ron goes, that's great, leave it. And we thought it was funny. We approved it. So if it's stupid, we said it was fine. I thought it was funny. I know the double entendre. That's why we thought it was funny, because it was so stupid. It was so corny that we thought it was great. People go, don't you know what this means? Of course we do. Yes, that's why we thought it was funny. What do you think? Do you hate it?
I mean, can you imagine a wrestling fan wearing a shirt in public that says "always pounding ass"? I mean,
that's what we thought was so funny. Like we're like, who's gonna wear this? This is insane. That's why we thought it was so funny and wanted to approve it. Me and Ron I don't know, maybe it's a wild sense of humor, but we thought it was funny.
We got to talk about 2015. You were there for this. This is a question from Whopper III. He wants to know, John, what was the story on Elimination Chamber 2015? Was it as much of a clusterfuck as it seemed? As a reminder, it was an Elimination Chamber match. Actually, there were two. There was a tag team Elimination Chamber match. So it was New Day and the Primetime Players, Tyson Kidd and Cesaro, the Ascension, the Lucha Dragons, and Los Matadors. And then we got an Intercontinental Elimination Chamber. So it was Ryback and Sheamus and Dolph Ziggler and Mark Henry and R-Truth and King Barrett. Listen, we've seen some great ideas in the Elimination Chamber. I'm not sure that tag team and Intercontinental was it. What did you think of this?
Yeah, sometimes things look good on a board, and then in person they don't work. I was talking to Tyler Breeze and Fandango in England about when they did the match where they came out with the mops and the detective glasses and stuff, and everybody in the room thought it was a stupid idea that Vince had to come out with the mops and they said, hey, these guys have worked really hard. They're good workers. And all that's true. They said, don't have them do this. It'll kill their career. Vince was like, nope, I think it works. And Road Dogg was, dead set against it. I was against it too, but I'm sitting there thinking, you know what, maybe Vince knows. I don't know. And sure enough, when they did it, the place went ballistic. They thought it was awesome how it worked. But sometimes you draw up something and you think this is going to work, and it goes the exact opposite way. That's what happened with that. I mean, the tag team elimination chamber. I have no idea why somebody thought this was a good idea, but it wasn't.
Spanish Jesus of X over on Twitter wants to know if you could give a clothesline from hell to any famous historical person, who would it be?
Any famous historical person. Probably Andrew Johnson, the president after Lincoln. He cut off the rebuilding of the South and put the South back 100 years until Lyndon Johnson passed the Civil Rights Act. So if anybody I could clothesline history, I think Andrew Johnson. I'd knock that freaking dumbass's head off.
Man, we're getting some knowledge dropped on us here today. Didn't expect that one. Blobert says, any recollections or stories he could share on the huge outdoor Dublin, Ireland show? It was main evented by JBL versus John Cena versus Kurt Angle. The special guest referee was Steve Austin in 2005, where JBL cut a great heel promo calling Ireland Britain's bitch.
Yes, I did.
What do you remember of this show?
I remember a spot I called. This is it's so freaking bad. I think it was this one. It had to be because Steve surely wasn't a referee with me and Kurt and John in any other match. But I was on the top rope and I called the spot as I'm going up the top rope. I'd tell I think Cena was being held by Angle or something. I said back elbow him, catch me in a power slam. So I want him to back elbow Kurt, him come off me, catch me in a power slam for a false finish. And we hadn't talked about it in the back. I was calling it on the fly. Well, he backed elbow Kurt. Kurt went out of the ring, and Cena sold out the side of the other ring. Then it's taken me forever to climb up to the top rope. And now I'm just standing there on the top rope by myself. Nobody's in the ring, and Stone Cold's just standing there as the referee. And Finley's down at the ringside. He goes, "What are you going to do now?" I said, "I guess climb down. I don't know. That's about my only option." So I climbed down. It was awesome. I mean, it was so much fun. I'm working with 3 Hall of Famers. How can you go wrong? They brought Steve over for that tour. And, Steve was like Piper. I remember one time me and Cena were working just north of San Francisco, and Taker couldn't make it or something. So they called Hot Rod to come in. And me and Cena hadn't locked up for 10 minutes, and Hot Rod's just being Hot Rod as the referee. And Cena looks over at me, and I told John, I said, he has just stole the show. Nobody even notices us. And Cena goes, "It's awesome, isn't it?" I said, "It's freaking incredible." It's just, when you got a referee like a Stone Cold or a Hot Rod, there's a good chance the referee is going to get more over than you.
That's awesome. Jay over on Twitter wants to know, as a wrestler who's very smart with money, do you have any thoughts on wrestlers using an agent like a Barry Bloom or these talent agencies to negotiate contracts? And would that ever be something you would ever do for yourself? Thanks, Legend.
I don't know. I don't think I know Barry. Obviously, I know exactly who he is. Don't get me wrong. I want to say I don't know him. I don't think I've ever met him unless I've just shook his hand. So I don't think I know Barry. If I do, and Barry's listening to this, Barry, I apologize. But I don't think I know Barry. He comes very highly regarded by everybody. He's done really good stuff for a lot of guys. A lot of these agents have done really good stuff. Mojo Rawley is now an agent that's done some good stuff for guys. I've never used one. I had an agent one time, and I remember he came to a show one time with me, and I would never use him for Vince. Vince hated agents. Vince was a great pay guy, but if you tried to back Vince into a corner, it would work just the opposite. So if you brought an agent to go deal with it, you would get a worse deal than if you just went to Vince. And anyway, the agent I was being used for my CNBC or Fox or whatever it was, I had him for a very short time. Nice guy, very competent guy. But I remember he introduced himself to Vince, and Vince looked at him like he had just passed gas. And I'm like, the look of disgust was like, and then Vince looked at me like, "You got an agent?" Yeah, like, no, not for you, not for you. I'm like, oh my God, Vince hated agents. So no, I've never used one, but I've always had a thought that maybe I should, because the problem you have in wrestling is our salaries are confidential. There's a confidentiality clause in all the contracts. Now, some guys will release their contracts out, and some of them may not have confidentiality clause. All of mine did. I assume that most of them did from WWE. So I don't know what anybody else is making. An agent has a way to get that stuff because they've done other guys' contracts. So I can see why you would use an agent, somebody like Barry Bloom. I've just never done it because I always had a deal with Vince, and Vince didn't like agents, and Vince was best pay guy in the world. And so I never had a reason to use an agent with Vince.
Well, it's also worth mentioning too that a lot of guys use agents to help with that sort of good cop, bad cop thing, right? Like they want to maintain a great relationship with Vince, but they like more money. And if he views you as the individual asking for more money, maybe that's not looked upon as favorably. I get the rationale, but I also know that for years, Vince just didn't want to deal with agents at all.
He hated them and, just hated them. So I never used one with Vince and always got paid, I thought, very generously. Now if I was to get one, get a deal somewhere, which there's nothing out there about to happen. I'd be happy to use an agent because I certainly don't know what the salaries are. I don't know what to expect. I mean, everything's changed with the new big TV contracts. I have no idea. So if I had a chance, I'd probably be calling Barry Bloom and saying, please, would you represent me?
Well, it's funny that we're talking about that because the next question is about the potential. Will JBL ever come back to doing a weekly WWE commentary with Michael Cole if offered the role? So if your phone rang and it was Mr. Khan on the other side and he said, hey, we'd love to see you and Michael Cole put the band back together, would you be interested?
Of course I'd be interested, but there's not a spot available and I don't see one coming open. So it's, it's a hypothetical that, and I don't want to say that, people take this out of context. You have great commentators right now. I think Pat McAfee does a great job. I think Wade does a great job. I think Booker's doing a great job. Corey, I love those guys. And you've got wonderful guys who are filling the roles incredibly well, better than I could do. So there's no role available. Would I enjoy it? Of course I would. Yeah, I had a lot of fun being around the boys and a lot of fun working with Michael. But there's no spot available, and so there's no future in a commentary role.
Well, there is a future in growing your business. If you can hear my voice and you run a small business, you need to go right now to conradsguy.com. That's where you're going to learn about my man over at Envision Marketing Consultants. I'm talking about Eric Nichols. I've been advertising my mortgage company since 2009. I started buying a lot of radio and TV. And well, those radio and TV reps, they actually started to sell me a little bit on digital. The idea being I knew that the world was changing. I needed to be able to get some ads on YouTube and Amazon and Hulu. And you can do all of that now, including SEO and pay-per-click and targeted display. If your company is doing any of that right now, you owe it to yourself and your business and your family to go talk with my buddy Eric. Let him take a look at conradsguy.com. And here's what's great. If Eric and his team at Envision Marketing can't help your company and you're on the right track, they'll tell you that too. But having that peace of mind of knowing you're getting the best out of your marketing budget, that's what we're really talking about. And I'm talking to you if you're B2B or retail or food and beverage, manufacturing, nonprofits, and certainly mortgages. If you're ready to overhaul your digital marketing or just jumpstart it and get ready and start making some more money by creating some more business, some new leads, whatever you're looking for, they can help. They can make it happen. They want to help you right now at conradsguy.com. For sure, don't buy it from your radio or TV rep. I did that. I paid the stupid tax. It didn't work. So I relied heavily on radio and TV, but once I talked to Eric, man, the switch just flipped. The light bulb went on. My leads went up. My costs went down. Man, you want to talk about efficient? You want to talk about results? You're talking about Envision Marketing Consultants. Go check it out right now. Chat with my buddy Eric. He helped me. He'll help you. And I believe it so much, I'm letting them use my name in their domain, conradsguy.com. That's conradsguy.com. Hey, John, we got a hard-hitting question here that I know is going to get you fired up. Big Ben wants to know, why haven't you responded to Vince Russo about the lies you've spread about him bankrupting companies? Monday Night Raw had the highest ratings under Russo. WCW was sold, and TNA is still in business. So there, nanny, nanny, boo-boo, stick your head in doo-doo. Those companies didn't go out of business, but you did get a lot of traction from hardcore Russo followers. I like Vince. I got along with him. I know that was not your experience with him, but a lot of people are saying, what did he lie about? In fact, you're the liar. Those companies didn't go out of business. Chat me up.
In truth, they did not go out of business. I said bankrupt. I should have said those companies went away, which they did. WCW was sold for pennies on the dollar, and TNA had to go through a lot of iterations to stay solvent and stay in business. So bankrupt was the wrong word to use. I should not have used that. So I apologize for misspeaking of my nomenclature. The rest of it, I stand by. Look, I haven't talked about Russo at all. They mentioned the Brawl for All, and he's tried to make a living off of talking. He tries to make a living off controversy, and if it's not me, it's somebody else. And so I don't no desire to be in a controversy with somebody that is can't go back anywhere he's been. That part, that's all you need to know about him. He literally cannot go back to any place that he has been and worked. As far as I know, you don't see him at WWE reunions. You don't see him anywhere else. And so he makes his living off controversy. If it's not me, it's somebody else. And I have no desire to get into anything with somebody on the internet that certainly does not. That's all. I have no desire to get into controversy with this guy.
Do you think I never really put that together until you said that, because they're always having Legends reunions and opportunities and meet and greets and access and all the, maybe it's not on the main show, but it's WWE adjacent. It's still a part of the offering and the presentation. It just might not be on USA or Netflix, but I don't think that really clicked for me that Russo has never been involved in any of that. Were there hurt feelings that Vince hung on to when Russo left and went to WCW?
I don't know. Vince McMahon never said anything about it, like to that. I don't think he would. Even if he had them, I don't think he would. I don't know the feelings of Vince when Vince Russo left. I know Vince was scrambling to figure things out, and Tommy Blancha that's when Tommy filled the gap. Tommy's a really qualified guy and a really good guy. So I don't know. I don't know if there was, Vince Russo came back for a very short time and didn't stay. And I do know when I did a Legends with JBL, and I had Eric Bischoff on, and he said something about Vince Russo as far as WCW. Russo sent me a text, and I sent him a very nice text back. And he said, "Hey, I demand to come on," or I think he said demand. I don't want to, it's been a long time. I don't want to, sometimes when you try to discredit a guy, you just try to find words here or there that are wrong instead of the whole sentiment. And
right.
Trying not to say anything wrong because I want to disqualify what I'm saying because the sentiment is correct. Anyway, he said, "I want to come on and refute what Bischoff said about me." And so I said, okay. So I asked Vince McMahon, I said, "Hey, here's what happened on Legends with JBL. I had Bischoff on. I thought it was a very good show." And I said, "But he said this about Vince Russo. Russo has sent me this text." I said, "You can read it if you want to." And he said, "No, I don't want to." He said, "Give me a summary of what it is." And actually, I did not tell him I'd read it because I wouldn't do that. I don't think I'd do that. I gave him a summary of what it was. It's been a long time. And I said, here's what he said in the text. And I said, "Would you want to do a show with Vince Russo?" I said, "I'm happy to interview him." And Vince said, "No, nope, not giving him any press whatsoever. Nope, not doing it." And that was it. So I don't know if Vince had animosity toward him or if Vince was this guy who is out there saying something negative about our product, and I don't want to give him press as far as prestige, as far as putting him on a WWE show. I don't know what Vince's motive was behind saying unequivocally, "No, this is not going to happen." So I don't know what Vince was thinking.
Man, I'm fascinated by that because I never really thought about that. But it does feel like there were a handful of guys that there were hard feelings with for a long time. We saw recently the news that Demolition has just recently signed a Legends deal with WWE. For longtime WWE fans like myself, the idea that they've been omitted from the Hall of Fame all these years has been a glaring omission because they were such a big part of my fandom as a kid. So I hope that becomes more likely to be a reality. But did you ever have a conversation with Vince about the hurt feelings maybe towards Bill Eadie?
No, but I did have a little bit about the lawsuit. There was some the lawsuits that went back and forth. Those were the hurt feelings, as far as my understanding. And, it's hard to get over that. Somebody sues you. I get it.
You pay it. I mean, I think Vince had to settle. So he had to write a check. And that's not something that not a lot of people got over on the old man.
Right. And you look at a guy like Jesse Ventura. Jesse Ventura sued Vince and won. But then Jesse Ventura becomes governor. And so that's a different thing when you want to bring a governor in to be the referee at SummerSlam.
Yeah.
If Jesse had just won the lawsuit and was just average Jesse Ventura somewhere, not the governor of Minnesota, they wouldn't have brought Jesse back. There was hard feelings toward Jesse. But because he was governor, and Jesse will say that himself, because he had made this huge name for himself, all of a sudden you bring him back, now then you can mend fences and things like that. But when you don't need a person and they've sued you, there's those hard feelings just kind of stay out there, and I know I've met Bill many, many times. What a wonderful man, and just shit happens. But, I can understand why Vince would not want to bring him in after losing a lawsuit to him.
Do you know if there were hurt feelings with Macho Man? Because for so long, it felt like everybody came back except Macho Man. And it feels like there would have been a huge opportunity before he passed. Like his contract with WCW actually ended before WCW went under. So even if it was just, celebrating him at a WrestleMania appearance here or there or whatever, it could have worked, but it just didn't. Was that a Vince call, or do you think he and Savage just didn't get along?
Apparently they didn't get along. From what I've heard, I don't know that for sure, but I mean, we didn't mention Savage around Vince. It was kind of well known, it just wasn't said. And I don't know what the heat was. I think, it was all about business is what it was. I know that. But, Vince was a guy that he carried a grudge. And now he carried a grudge until business necessitated that you don't carry the grudge.
Yes.
And so that I think that point never came up.
I just think it's interesting that he did eventually go in the Hall of Fame, but only posthumously, and Lanny inducted him. And unfortunately, Lanny's no longer with us. But the way Vince has held grudges has always been interesting to me because it doesn't feel like it's one size fits all. It always comes back to what's best for business. And I'm glad you clarified that it was business, because I'm so tired of all the bullshit speculation about that one. It's like he left when Ted Turner was doubling down. I mean, he had seen what Hogan had done with Turner. Like Savage going had to feel like a major blow to the WWF.
Sure, and Vince is the most Machiavellian guy I've ever seen in my life. And that's the best way to explain him. He does what's best for business. Vince told me one time, he said, listen, John, he goes, sometimes when you're talking to this person here and this person here has got something, you just leave them. Vince was unbelievably Machiavellian. And when business necessitated that you change, Vince got over grudges pretty quick. Whether he did or not, he put the grudges aside. And I think that's what it was with Bill Eadie. Business never necessitated that he had to get over that grudge.
Well, something we're never going to get over here on the show. I mean, this is like a day one something to wrestle question, but it might be the first time I've gotten the chance to ask you, John. Tex Machina wants to know, how big's Batista's dick?
How did this become a deal?
So there was I won't say his name, Mikey from Black Label Pro, but he used to write in to kayfabe commentaries when Sean Oliver was doing shoot interviews, and they did something called the U Shoot, and you could submit questions through YouTube. And the question that came in from a random reader, certainly not Mikey from Black Label Pro, he asked after a long paragraph. So it might be like, John, in 2005, you did a tour of Dublin and there was a 3-way dance on top and you were in the main event. I'll never forget. You cut a promo that said that, Dublin is Britain's bitch. And there was a 3-way with you and John Cena and Kurt Angle, and Steve Austin was the referee. And when you think back on that night, if you could just take us back there and as honestly as you can answer, how big's Batista's dick? So he would build up something like that and then just take a hard right. And so it's when I hit Bruce with the first one and he didn't respond, he just went quiet. We just let like a minute of dead air go by. And then I said, You still thinking about it? And people just died and loved it. And now I have to ask you, because you were there.
I was there.
Whatever props you want to use. I mean, you've probably seen the thing in action. Let's get to the bottom of it, John. How big's Batista's dick?
All I can say is he's a huge movie star.
Milton Berle.
Yeah, oh my, Milton Berle. Yeah, the freaking
Frank Sinatra level movie star.
The freaking what they call the Ruby Rose, the shaker. You know, they used to call the Milton Berle. You know, the thing you'd have where you get the stuff.
Oh, the protein powder. Yeah.
Yeah. The gimmick that they called it the Milton Berle back in the day because apparently it was about the same size.
My goodness.
It's just like I saw a thing one time on A-Rod, and it was some woman that claimed to have an affair with him, and she said, "Yeah, he loves sex and he's incredibly well endowed," and that was like supposed to be an insult. I'm like, God, really? So, yeah.
Wouldn't that be great if that was the worst thing people could say about you?
Yeah,
I like him, but God, I just can't hang out with him anymore. Too big a hog, you know?
right.
Too much.
Hey, and by the way,
wait, what am I looking at right here?
The Layfield lure.
Wait, this is real. Like
I told you it was.
Yeah, but I didn't expect your face on a Layfield lure.
Yeah.
Wow.
So this is the Layfield lure. That's that's the skirt on top that moved independently. You had the treble hook in the back that was its position where it's like it hangs at a 3/4 of an angle, so it's a bit weedless. And then there's the spoon on the front that bumps on logs and things and keeps it kind of weedless. And the red and white one are by far the most accurate and best lure of all of them.
I can't believe this is a real thing. Like I thought, because I'll be honest, while we were during the course of this show, I went to eBay and found a vintage Layfield lure sign, and I already bought it. And that shit's going to be delivered next week because I was going to gift it to you, thinking, "Man, this is cool. Look what I found. I can't believe it's real." Motherfucker, you're still running this. You've still got, like when you said you had 9,000, I thought it was leftover inventory from yesteryear. That's a pretty damn recent photo of you. What's going on here?
Yeah, they sent me like the Rapala lures, or Rapala, however you want to say it, spelled differently. They spent over a year figuring out how to make this lure run exactly like the original that my great uncles made, Cotton and Jester made. And they figured out this lure, and the skirt on top runs independently of the lure itself, and it moves opposite. So it's like a wounded fish. Man, this thing kills fish. There's been nothing ever built like it since. My uncles did this back in the 1920s when the first lures that they built, 1920s, 1930s, I believe it was. And because my dad was born in the Depression in the 1930s. And so, but the problem was this lure cost a fortune to develop because of the skirt on top of it, because it's not a simple lure. So Rapala spent a year developing this thing, and it spent a ton of money developing it. But then as soon as it got developed, they made like 9,000 of them. It's ready to go in stores. They have my picture on it. I'm going to promote this thing. WWE has given me permission to promote this thing as the Layfield lure because it's my family lure, and they're going to promote it as well. And somehow they changed management and didn't sell not one of them. They didn't want to deal with wrestling. And, back then wrestling didn't have a good name like it has now. And so they just said, "What do you want to do with the inventory?" I said, "Well, can I have it?" Like, "Yeah, we'll sell it to you for $1 a piece." So I paid like $9,000 for 9,000 lures.
My God, what a story. I can't believe that's real, man. Like,
there's also a topwater lure that they do. Both, the thing was my uncles built really intricate lures. I mean, they're almost impossible to mass produce. The topwater lure was fantastic too. I think this one's better. I've got some of the originals, but I wouldn't dream of fishing with one now because, obviously there's a finite amount of those.
I just think it's hilarious that, a generation ago, this wouldn't have been possible. But right now you can go drink a Hulk Hogan or a Stone Cold beer. And maybe if you're starting to get tired because you had to get up to go fishing at 4 a.m, you can have a Ric Flair energy drink. And then while you're out there passing the time, you could listen to Busted Open Radio and listen to a radio show about wrestling while you eat some of your Ric Flair weed gummies. And then you could cast your JBL lure while you're fishing. Like, what in the world is happening to wrestling, dude? This is unbelievable, the growth in the last few years.
Yeah, back because you got to understand. I mean, Rapala literally, they didn't want to deal with a wrestler, so that's why they got rid of it. You know, back in the day, you know, wrestling had a bad name. You know, I remember Shawn Michaels was, you know, the first time he was on a cover of anything, he was on the cover of Playgirl. I remember walking through Dallas and I remember seeing the Playgirl, like, oh shit, there's Shawn's magazine. I picked it up before I realized what I was doing. And I'm sitting there with my cowboy hat and boots in Dallas, and some guys are looking at me, and I literally, as soon as they saw me, I go, cute dude. That was all I said. But guys didn't get things like this. You know, guys didn't get endorsements. Guys didn't get movies. Guys didn't get nothing. You know, all the stuff that's happening now, this is all completely different. I mean, this is a complete new world that it was hard to see this ever happening.
Man, I got to learn more about Layfield Lures. Dan wants to know, what was JBL's first impression of Bruce Prichard and Eric Bischoff?
Very good. You know, I met Eric I told you before in Narita Airport, and you know, I had a concussion and I was a little bit high from smoking with Doc, which he was trying to get me on the plane to get on, but I'm not used to weed, so I was not very functioning very well. But he's trying to help me with my concussion, so I don't remember that meeting very well. I remember Eric being very nice. I remember when he came in, I remember Taker looking and go, "What the fuck?" You know, it wasn't like he was mad. It was just like couldn't believe he was there, and Eric has always been fantastic, a fantastic gentleman from the first time I ever met him. And Bruce is the same. You know, Bruce is the one that called me on a payphone, and somehow he found the number in Northern Germany. We think Owen was the one that probably gave him the number. And then I came in and got to meet Bruce for the first time in catering when I had my tryout match. And Bruce has always been fantastic. I mean, these two guys are just salt of the earth type guys.
Let's do another one here. Midnight Rider wants to know, which wrestler has the most heat with you? Meaning, who will never come off of your shit list for the rest of your life?
I certainly wouldn't say it because I'm not going to give him any press. But, you know, it's funny because I've learned a lot from Vince. And Vince would always, success is the best revenge. You know, and Vince would, you know, you choose the time to pick a fight is the time of your choosing. Not theirs. You know, sometimes it's not on your terms, but most of the time, but when you can make it on your terms, you do. So there are some guys out there I still, you know, have a little animosity toward. And, you know, the Christian thing is to forgive them. I'm not going to be very Christian about it. There's going to be a time where I'm going to have a chance. And when I do, I'm going to cash some receipts.
Whose shit list are you on? Is there someone out there who you know?
Oh, good question.
Your ass.
Good question.
I mean, Russo sounds like Russo.
Yeah, it sounds like I'm on Russo's list.
Who's your Mount Rushmore of shit list? I want you to be thinking about who else hates you besides the people who do our research, because I know you passed.
That's right. That's right.
That's a great inside joke that we haven't shared enough with our audience.
That's right.
A couple of guys who help us put together notes and research, and they just scour the internet. It's usually newsletters. And I think everyone listening to this knows John was never a favorite with the Torch or the Observer.
Nope.
And so as they're compiling it, the people who put together our formats for us, sometimes they just lean into the Dave Meltzer and Wade Keller narrative. So when John gets to prep for our show, where he's standing in as a favor to his friend Bruce, he gets to read, about 37 pages of how big of a piece of shit he was. What a terrible person, what a terrible wrestler, what a terrible human being. And he does it here with a smile. I mean, John, you're a heck of a guy.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I get, you know, anytime I start feeling like I'm a decent human being, I just read the research that you guys send me, and I realize that I'm the worst person since Judas Iscariot and Pol Pot.
Well, what you are good at, though, is being a half-ass handicapper. And basketball fans, you ready to win some real money? Check it out, Pick Six from DraftKings. When it comes to basketball payouts, DraftKings Pick Six dunks on its rivals, including Prize Picks. Just select 2 or more players and choose if they'll have more or less of a stat. We're talking points, rebounds, three-pointers, and more. By the way, Pick Six is available in most states, including California, Texas, Georgia, Missouri, and more. Don't settle for a smaller payout. Switch to Pick Six and cash in your basketball knowledge. New players get $50 in Pick Six credits instantly on just a $5 entry. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use the code STW. That's code STW for new customers to play $5 and get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Better payouts, bigger wins, only with Pick 6 from DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccp.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 plus. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. One per new customer. Bonus awarded as a non-withdrawable Pick 6 credit that expires in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos. So, John, what say you? Who else besides Vince Russo has you on their shit list?
Wow, that would be good. That'd be very interesting to know. I'll tell you a guy who had me on a shit list for a while, but doesn't anymore, is Freddy Prinze. And we're good friends now. It was a misunderstanding. When Freddie first came in, I'm a big fan of Scooby-Doo. And I called him Scooby-Doo every time he came in. But I called him Scooby-Doo as a term of endearment. He later said, that guy wouldn't even give me the respect of my name. He thought I was just messing with him, So, and Freddie, it's a great story. I get in the ring one time, and Freddie's back by Vince, and they gave me a promo, and I did something completely different. Something Freddie and I talked about, but I kind of went on my own. Anyway, Vince got so mad, he threw Freddie out of Gorilla. Well, Freddie did not throw me under the bus. He didn't tell Vince that I went on my own, went rogue and did it. So when I come back, I went straight to Vince and I said, "Hey Vince, listen, that was on me. I didn't know what happened with Freddie. I didn't know Freddie had been thrown out of Gorilla. And so I went back and I said, "Hey Vince, that was on me. I'm the one that changed it. That wasn't from anybody else. I thought my idea was better. It wasn't." And I said, "I just want to let you know I'm sorry because it didn't work." And Vince looked at me and goes, "You know, I wrote that." I said, "I didn't know that." I said, "But I'm the one that changed it. And then I was doing it because I thought it was right and it wasn't. Just want to tell you I'm sorry." And Vince goes, "Thank you." And anyway, I left. Then he says, "Hey, you can tell Freddie to come back now." So he can let Freddie back in Gorilla. We found out later that both of us had refused to stooge the other one, so we both became friends after that. So no more heat any longer with me and Freddie. But the Scooby-Doo thing was not being mean. That was something because I loved the movie he was in, but he took it the wrong way.
Got to do another question here. This is a good one from Common Sense. He wants to know, if Simmons didn't exist, who would you have picked for a legendary run as a tag team? So in this alternate universe, there was no Ron Simmons, but you're still going to do the Acolytes and the APA and have a great tag run. Who would you put in the Ron Simmons spot if he didn't exist?
Godfather.
Okay.
No doubt about it. The man can work. That man is smart. He's got great charisma. There's no doubt about it. Godfather. I mean, I really liked everything about him. Big, tough guy, terrific look. I think Godfather, he can do anything. Obviously, you look at his Instagram. I'm on Instagram just to follow him, me and Ron both, just to see what he's doing all over the world. He's an entertaining guy and a good guy. Godfather would be the guy.
Here's one from King Julian who wants to know, who was responsible for all that pyro when you returned to Raw? I mean, that was kind of funny. I mean, it was like a year's worth of pyro in a single segment. Is that Vince ribbing you, Kevin Dunn, someone else? No,
it was Vince, 100%. Vince thought it was great. He did something similar, I believe, with Jericho, I think a few years later. That was Vince's idea, 100%. He thought that was awesome. And I thought it was too. I thought it worked.
We got a question here from Quarter Ton who says, what are some reasons, in your opinion, that mass superstars struggle with getting over? Across all the major promotions, there's only a handful of mass superstars that are presented at a high level. Why do you think that is? Of course, John, Eric Bischoff would say that, well, they're covering your face up. They're losing some of the expression. You can't sell. Bruce Prichard or others might say, you got to talk them into the seats. And if they are a bilingual superstar, but they're not confident in their English, it might not feel authentic. And American wrestling really requires strong promos. Where do you land on that? What do you think the answer is?
I think the answer is there's only a few Rey Mysterios, and to me, I mean, Rey Mysterio is the best masked wrestler, in my opinion, of all time. He's one of the best wrestlers of all time, but very few guys can get empathy like Rey does with a mask on that covers up most of their face. And, the thing about it is it's hard to draw money. And so when you're talking about guys who can draw money, that's a small group anyway. And I think people are sometimes conflating that with, okay, there's all these luchadors and there's only so many that can draw money. Yeah, right. There's only so many that can draw money of anything. And I think Rey Mysterio is an anomaly in life. Yeah, he's that good. And a lot of these guys, and a lot of that also is true. You look at anything that's trying to get over with the audience. I don't care where you are. If you don't speak the language of your audience, whether you're overseas trying to do that or whether you're here trying to do that in English and you don't speak English well, it's tough to get over. So it's always going to be a problem of guys who don't speak the language. Sometimes you can get a manager that might suffice. That's very rare too. But I think it's all the above. But I think it's hard to get over with a mask. Vince was never big fans of masked wrestlers until Rey Mysterio. And I still don't think he's a fan of masked wrestlers. I think he's a fan of Rey Mysterio because Rey Mysterio was just different from everybody else.
Poppy Chulo wants to know, what was your favorite match? Like the match you were in. And then is there a favorite match that doesn't include you? And if you ever lapsed in your fandom, was there a match that made you a fan again?
Yeah, my favorite match, I think, would have to be that first match with Ray that was so bloody, and because I knew that was a one-off if that didn't work. And
Eddie, you mean Eddie?
I'm sorry, with Eddie. I apologize. Yeah, with Eddie. And if that match didn't work, it'd been a one-off. And so I think that by how much historical value that had for me, that had to be one of my favorite matches. Favorite match I've seen, not obviously, you don't know that, would be Shawn and Taker. The first one, I think WrestleMania 25 in Houston. When I watched that, I thought at the time that's the best match I've ever seen. And a match that made me fall in love with the wrestling business again was Cena versus Umaga. And I wasn't calling the match. I was just on commentary, so I had my headphones off, and I'm sitting there inside the bowl watching this match. And I just remember thinking, this is why people love the business. I remember specifically thinking that this is why people love the business. It was that good.
Fun question here. We're going to give some props to Aloha from Liam. He wants to know, who's the most hardworking man in the locker room in your era?
Oh, there were a few really hardworking guys. Chris Benoit was a very hardworking guy. Eddie was a hardworking guy. Taker. You got to go with Taker. The guy worked hurt. The guy worked every day. It was amazing what he did. Wouldn't take a day off. Always set an example. I got to go with Undertaker.
John, we got this question a million different ways, so I'm not even really sure how you're going to answer it. We'll go with Rockstar. He wants to know, what's up with all your run-ins on TNA? Will we ever hear from you as to why you've clotheslined guys to aid Joe Hendry? Like, everybody wants to know, what's going on, John?
Yeah, the question was I aiding Joe Henry or was I aiding Nick Nemeth in some of that? There's, I guess, depends on how you look at it. So not to throw a little extra curveball in there, you're going to find out very soon. And look, I've said all along, this was always a plan, and this was always a plan that's going to culminate in something. And that culmination is going to happen early summer. And so there is something happening, and there's going to be a progression, and after it happens, it's going to escalate, hopefully, very, very quickly and very fast.
How many clotheslines are you going to hit between now and early summer?
Now, not that many.
Okay.
A few.
So I'd take the under, to use a gambling term.
Take the under. That's right. I could hit a leprechaun pretty soon. By the time this airs, I may have already hit a leprechaun with a trash can, but a different leprechaun than you know about, by the way. And but there's going to be some clotheslines, but there's going to be just. So let me give you a little background here. I should probably get you a picture somewhere. If I had one in my iPad with, I'd show you. Brisco has made my garage into an amateur wrestling training room. So I've got training mats down. I've got a suplex dummy. We call it Bruce, by the way, because it's our suplex dummy. Brisco named it. I've got Persian clubs like the Sheik out there. I've got all kinds of plyometric stuff, but my whole garage now is basically an amateur training where I can do it by myself with the suplex dummy in the Persian club. So Brisco has set me up, and he and Jody Simon, who is Joe Malenko, who was trained by Carl Gotch, one of the greatest trainers of all time. Joe's freaking, he's an assassin. I send them videos. They give me critiques and help me with my training. And so there is a process here more than what people realize that's going on right here. But my entire garage, which is just right outside on the other side of this computer, is literally covered in wrestling mats and suplex dummies and Persian clubs.
Oh man, that's exciting.
That's something I don't think anybody knows. So that's news that is brought out here.
If you want to send that picture to Silva, we'll have him slide it in post. But
I will send it to Silva, and so we can get it put in post.
Do we need to get you a Barry Bloom? Do you need an agent?
I may need a Barry Bloom. Yes, I may. I've never had a wrestling agent before, but I certainly may need one because I certainly don't understand the economics of wrestling anymore. So Barry Bloom would be very beneficial to me.
Well, I want to give a shout out to Mike Dawkins, our resident gimmick attorney. He's helped with a little bit of that too. He's helped with contracts.
Mike is wonderful, by the way. He's helped me with the Brisco and Bradshaw. He just sent me a bill for the Brisco and Bradshaw, but it was not a very big bill. It was a very small one. And so when I saw it, I thought, wow, that's great. He's doing great service for me. And
it's the only time we get excited about a bill when we open it up and we're like, oh shit, that's less than
That's right. That's right. The expectation is, oh my God, it's from an attorney. Oh yes. No.
Yeah.
And then when you see it, you go, oh shit, I can write a check for that.
I can manage that.
Yeah.
By the way, if you're wondering, we are going to hit you double time with some Gerald Brisco next week. Next week is going to be an episode that John is going to plan for and stress about for a long time because he holds Mr. Brisco in such high regard, but it's going to be hard to tell next week because about half the time, John will be putting him over. And the other half of the time, he'll be just ripping his heritage, his culture, his home state. To know John is to love him. And that's what we're going to do next week. Our topic is the one and only Gerald Brisco. And I can't wait, man. I know we're going to do a fun show talking about him. What a great guy. What a guy who's given his entire life to wrestling and people around him. I don't think people really know Gerald Brisco's heart. We're going to talk about that, and we'll talk about what a badass he was. And he comes from a long line of badasses too, doesn't he, John?
Yes, he does. Gerald has been at the center of so much of wrestling history, and he is a really smart guy. First guy to put out wrestling T-shirts. He created the gimmick table. He was there when he sold Georgia Championship Wrestling to Vince McMahon, which Vince will to this day will say it's the only people that's ever out negotiated him. In fact, he'll see Jerry. He goes, "You're still," and he goes, "You're still mad about Manhattan, aren't you?" They bought the Manhattan for a bag of Smiths and some beads from the natives. And he's also there when WWE bought out WCW. Jerry's been there for everything. He drew huge ratings, the Attitude Era, 8.6 rating with Pat, and he drew huge ratings back in the 70s and 80s with his brother Jack and as a singles wrestler. So Jerry's done a lot. And, when I got to induct him in the Hall of Fame, right before I walked out, they'd had a little drink. Jack and Jerry both told me, he goes, "Listen, our whole family's out there. Don't you make no fucking Indian jokes." I said, "Guys, I wouldn't do that at the Hall of Fame. I promise you, okay? I promise. It's too important to do that. Too much respect. I wouldn't do that." I walked out there, and the first thing I said was, I walk in, and there's Jerry and Jack standing by the door. And I said, "Hey, guys, it's not a cigar store. It's the Hall of Fame. Come on in."
My God.
And when I walked off stage, Conrad, I'll tell the story next week. When I walked off stage, I was supposed to walk by them and shake their hand. I saw Jerry walking crosswise, looking at me, and I saw Jack, and I thought, they're going to take me down in front of 10,000 people. There's nothing I can do about it. And I thought, I exited side ramp and climbed down the stage so I wouldn't get stretched in my tuxedo. Because they would have killed me if they could have got me.
I mean, if Jack Brisco wanted to stretch you.
Oh my God. Yes.
It's happening.
You just watched, like I did, the national championship in 1965.
Yes.
It looked like the Road Warriors versus Joe and Bob in 86. I mean, he just dominated this guy. It looked like a varsity senior against a junior high kid. This was the national championship. Jack did not give up 1 point in the entire national championship tournament. I mean, it's unheard of what Jack Brisco did. Jerry's just as mean and tough, but oh my God, Jerry, I knew at least would back off and not kill me. I'm not sure Jack would back off and not kill me.
Well, there you go. We're going to find out how JBL got on Jack Briscoe's shit list and a whole lot of when we're talking about our one and only friend, Gerald Brisco. They broke the mold with that guy. I can't wait to talk about him in long form next week. In the meantime, why not check out some Brisco and Bradshaw? They've got hundreds of episodes in the archives available now anywhere you enjoy podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. Go check it out. It's Stories with Brisco and Bradshaw, and we'll be back next week talking all things Jerry Brisco, and we're going to get John's take on the Elimination Chamber. This WrestleMania season, boys, buckle up. Something to wrestle with. John Layfield. We'll be back next week. Hey, it's Conrad Thompson here to tell you a little more about what adfreeshows.com is all about. Get early, ad-free access to more than a dozen of your favorite wrestling podcasts every single week, starting at just $9. That's less than 20 cents an episode each month. And yes, you can listen to them all directly through Apple Podcasts or your regular podcast apps. How easy is that? Ad-free shows also has thousands of hours worth of bonus content and docuseries like Title Chase, Eric Fires Back, Conversations with Conrad, and The Insiders. Plus new series like The Book with David Crockett, Monday Mailbags with Mike Chioda and Nick Patrick, and a whole lot more. And you want to talk about early? You can't get any earlier than listening to the shows live. You can be a part of the live studio audience as we record the podcast. Plus, ride shotgun alongside your favorite childhood heroes for live watch-alongs, Q&As, and other interactive experiences every single month. Come on now, see for yourself what thousands of other wrestling fans from around the world have discovered, that adfreeshows.com is the best value in wrestling. Check it out today, and hey, when you do, the first week is completely free. adfreeshows.com.